And a fine sunny good morning to all of you out there. And just so everyone is aware, in the interest of me being completely candid and honest, no, that is not the real beach behind me. I just thought for today, it is morning time where I am, and it is a nice sunny spring day here in sunny Maryland. But I am just showing a glimpse of where I wish I was this past week, which was my kids' spring break from school. All right, well, here we are with this month's session and video for my Social Security YouTube channel. So those of you who are new, welcome. Those of you who have been with me throughout, welcome back. So in a bit of, I guess, what I'll call good news, this video will, without question, be the shortest one I've done to date. It'll actually be very brief because the topic I'm presenting, well, there's two good things about it. I got ahead of myself. Number one, of course, for those of you who either have watched my videos or even subscribed to the channel, you'll probably appreciate the break because some of my other videos have been a little more on the lengthy side because there's a lot of information to get out on some topics. But also, the other good thing about it is that the brevity of today's video is related in a thematic way to the topic that we're going to be discussing. It's an important topic. I don't mean to make light of it, but it's just not something that necessarily devotes and requires a lot of time and attention. But you'll understand thematically why the shortness of the video relates to this as soon as we get into it. So without further ado, let me do my usual screen share with you, and we're going to go right into my very, very brief slideshow for today. All right, and let me start the slideshow. Okay, so I didn't even put fancy graphics or anything on the slides and no music on today's video. Run into any problems like I almost did last time. All right, so I don't even have fancy animations necessarily for today's topic. So the topic for today is going to be on blindness cases and compassionate allowance cases. They are similar in some respects, also very different, but they definitely have a common theme again to them. So let's get right into it. So again, I always start every video with the slideshow about myself, my website, my contact information, practice information, all that good stuff. So definitely always glad to keep helping. You know, new calls and inquiries are coming in. And in fact, part of the reason for this particular topic presentation is because I've gotten in the last year alone a lot more of these kinds of cases than I've ever gotten before in my entire career. So it's very telling. So let's delve right into it. All right, let's start with something very, very simple and straightforward. Blindness is a disability. Now, if any of you have ever gone on the Social Security website, you've probably seen that they do differentiate between blindness and non-blindness. And there are some differences in certain respects of these claims. But let me start with a bit of, I guess I'll call good news. Blindness is very much a matter of fact. There's absolutely no subjectivity like there is with regular disability cases. In other words, if somebody has a non-blindness impairment, like a back problem or a mental health impairment, clearly you yourself and even your treating doctors or providers might believe you're disabled and have significant limitations, but the decision makers with Social Security might decide otherwise. Well, there's no gray area with blindness. You either meet the criteria or you don't. The official definition by Social Security, and this is a strict medical definition, is either having a central visual acuity for distance of 2200 or less in your better eye with the use of a correcting lens if you use it, or you have a visual field limitation in your better eye, such as the widest diameter of the visual field subtends an angle no greater than 20 degrees and has lasted or is expected to last 12 months or more. Now, I know that in some ways, especially if any of you are watching this video and thinking to yourself, I don't know necessarily what any of that means. Well, basically what it comes down to is if you've got visual deficits, whether it's straight up true blindness in every sense of the word, or if you have such significant visual deficits that seeing is just a challenge, not that you can't see anything, but that it's really, really that limited, your eye doctor or medical professional will have done testing that will confirm results that match up to what you see here. And if it matches, then you're good to go. There's no other part of the evaluation necessary. Now, the SSDI and SSI rules apply just the same for blindness, and it depends, of course, on your work history. Now, the 12-month duration requirement for blindness does not apply for SSI payments, which is an important distinction because normally with non-blindness impairments, with SSI or SSDI, you have to have an impairment that has lasted or is expected to last 12 months or more. If you've got blindness, you're immediately entitled, even if by some fluke it's not a permanent situation. Like if it's something that is a temporary loss of vision that is going to come back with the right treatment or surgery or whatever, and who knows what medical advances we'll have in the future. But for now, that's the way they treat it because it's that serious and it's that immediate. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, unlike non-blindness disability, you basically only have to deal with steps 1 and 3 of the sequential evaluation process, or SEP. So first at step 1, if you're either not working or you're working and earning less than the substantial gainful activity SGA amount, you go right to step 3. If you meet either the definition on the prior slide or these listings, 2.02, 2.03, and 2.04, which you can certainly look up, you're automatically disabled. So you don't go to steps 4 and 5. Here are the biggest differences between blindness and non-blindness disability. Number 1, the amount of monthly benefits you're eligible to receive. It's much higher for disability for blindness than it is for non-blindness. Secondly, and this is a huge one, the date last insured is much later for an SSDI claim if you have blindness. So normally with non-blindness disability, your date last insured is usually maybe a few years into the future after you stop working and paying into the system. With blindness cases, it's extended much, much further. And it's explained in this rule that I've referenced here, which can be looked up if you just Google that, if you can if you can decipher the precise terminology. But just trust me when I say if you've got blindness as a disability, even if you haven't worked for years, you may still be eligible under SSDI under Title II. And finally, the SGA amount for blindness is much higher than for non-blindness disability. So in 2024, you might recall on a prior video, the SGA amount, which is the amount you're allowed to work and earn pre-tax before they consider you're no longer disabled, is $1,550 a month. While for blind individuals, it's actually $2,590 a month. And you're also allowed to work for your own business and earn a net profit of $2,590 or less and still receive benefits for blindness disability. And the idea is, obviously, if you're blind, certainly you're going to be considered disabled and eligible for benefits, but they don't want to say that that means there's nothing you can ever do again. I mean, people that have never had a visual deficit, as opposed to people who are born blind, certainly have the ability to do some kind of work with training, rehabilitation, learning the Braille system, getting a guide dog or a walking stick or anything of that nature. And there's a whole bunch of legislation devoted to helping rehabilitate blind people and get them back into the workforce. But again, there's still going to be challenges and limitations, and Social Security recognizes that. And that's why they want to give them every opportunity possible, because it's a disability unlike any other. I think that goes pretty much without saying. So it's a good thing. All right, now, blindness disability freeze period. This is kind of interesting. And this is, so one thing I didn't say on the prior slide, and I'm going to say now, and you didn't hear this from me coming from an actual attorney. If you have blindness as a disability and you want to go for disability benefits, you truly don't need an attorney for that. It's like I said, if you meet those criteria medically, it's automatic. You may need somebody to physically assist you filing the application by phone or online or in person, but once it's in, you're going to get your benefits, and there's no need for an attorney to help you do that. Honestly, you don't need to pay an attorney's fee for a very brief period of time and work. I'm not saying that if you went to an attorney, they would turn you away, or that it's bad if an attorney's willing to take that on, because I've occasionally had people come to me under those circumstances. So it's fine. We're always here to help and do what we can. But this is the area where attorneys can help, and it's a very, very specialized area of Social Security law. In fact, it's one that I only came across from a colleague that got me into this line of work through the National Federation of the Blind here in Baltimore. That I've helped several individuals and hopefully will be able to help more in the future. So there's a special rule that can actually help you eventually get higher retirement or disability benefits. You can use this rule if you're blind but aren't getting disability benefits now because you're still working or because you returned to work. So basically, if you have lower earnings because of blindness, Social Security can exclude those years when they calculate your Social Security retirement or disability benefit in the future. Social Security bases your average lifetime benefits are based on your average lifetime earnings. So if they take out years where you had lower earnings and then average the higher ones together, your benefit's going to be higher if those years aren't counted. And this is known as a disability freeze, which you can contact Social Security to advise them you want a freeze. Now, if you're currently blind and you're receiving retirement benefits, this is generally where this comes into play. Oftentimes, Social Security is going to pay you retirement benefits at a much lower rate than what you're actually entitled to, because even though you've worked and paid into the system, they're counting those lower years along with the higher years, and they didn't employ the disability freeze period properly. It's very technical. It's very involved. I will tell you that. It's not something I would take the time to try to explain here and now. But the bottom line is, kind of in the same fashion as applying for disability benefits, you can apply or request specifically, and there's no form for this. You basically just send a request to your Social Security field office to do a recomputation. There's no time limit on it. But if you've been receiving retirement benefits and discover that you are actually receiving much less than you should have, or if you engage an attorney like myself who discovers that, it could be an astronomical difference in benefits. You could actually be entitled. Just to give random examples, the people that I've helped, because every single case of these types that I've taken on have come out successfully. It's pretty black and white. Again, there's really no gray area to this. And the long and short of it is, of the ones I've gotten recomputed, so to speak, they have walked away with six-figure amounts more in benefits over whatever period of time they've been receiving disability, and their monthly benefits more than double what they are already receiving. I mean, it can really go off the charts. So if you're in the situation or you know somebody who possibly is, whether they're officially affiliated with the National Federation of the Blind or not, you should definitely have them contact an attorney, possibly one that's knowledgeable in this area, which admittedly am still learning more about this from the colleague that got me involved in it, who was doing this work and is kind of backing away from it because he's retiring, and he lives in a tropical climate in Hawaii, similar to the virtual background you're seeing of mine. So when he gets on a video call with me, this is typically what I'm seeing in his real background. So that's another reason why I thought this background was appropriate for this topic. All right, so that's pretty much what I can tell you about blindness disability. Now let's talk about the other one. See if I can move my screen out of the way here. There we go. So the Compassionate Allowance Program, or the CAL program. So I told you, because this video is going to be the shortest one yet, that it thematically related to what we were talking about. Well, the common thread between blindness and compassionate allowance is the quickness with which a claim goes through the system and gets approved. So it's short and sweet and to the point, but it's also very serious. Blindness obviously is a very serious situation. Well, so is compassionate allowance. And let me explain. This is something, again, that I have encountered more in the last year or two than I have in my entire career. And it's something that you should take stock of, because if you or someone you know could potentially benefit from this program and potentially qualifies for it, it's pretty vital to alert Social Security to it. So basically, similar to blindness, some impairments are so severe that they're automatically disabling as a matter of law, and they easily meet or equal listings at step 3 without any such activity. But there are some impairments that not only meet this criteria, but also qualify for expedited handling and approval / payment, like immediate payment within a very short period of time, if they are progressive or terminal conditions that are expected to result in imminent death. And these are what are known as compassionate allowance impairments. So here is the website that you can click, and it will take you right to, you can Google this as well. If you just type compassionate allowance in the Google search bar, it'll bring this one up. So this is Social Security's website that shows you basically every condition listed alphabetically, A to Z. Now, you may not have exactly that diagnosis on paper, but if you have something very similar to it or that falls within the same category, they'll evaluate it the same way, no different than the listings themselves. But this tells you what the requirements are to prove a compassionate allowance to get your claim expedited and then approved and paid much more rapidly, usually within a few months on average. I think the average waiting time for a true compassionate allowance claim that I've gotten approved has been about 3 months from when I filed. It gets approved, goes into pay status immediately. And it's important to note when you file, if you have such a condition, so Social Security knows that, and they know to flag your claim and expedite processing. Now, if you filed online before, which I do for all my SSDI claimants, on the very first page, the last question on the page is your condition expected to result in death? Which is basically the question of this. If you click yes, it will not automatically flag it. It'll just prompt you with a message saying you should contact your field office after you file to alert them so that they can flag it more manually, because they won't automatically see it. And you do have to follow up, especially if you're not represented. If you have an attorney, the attorney will typically be the one to follow up. I know I do that for my clients all the time. But it is important because it can get lost in the shuffle, especially currently with the backlog and staff shortages they have at these offices. It will happen. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's just that short and sweet and to the point. If you have a compassionate allowance condition, you shouldn't waste 1 ounce of time letting Social Security know that, hey, I've got something that could result in imminent death. I want to get my benefits started before that happens so I can enjoy them while I'm still living. And if there's any eligible survivors to receive survivors benefits like minor children or a spouse, they should be aware of it as well. So as always, if any of you have any questions, phone and email are the best ways to contact me. I do respond directly to calls and emails pretty quickly, usually same day. And that's pretty much it. So I hope you all have enjoyed today's presentation, short, sweet, and to the point. And I'll look forward to seeing you for the next one. Take care.